Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to the Remake review, the mini-series where I share my thoughts and feelings about 3 chapters at a time from the Final Fantasy VII Remake. This review will contain spoilers all the way throughout for the whole game and lore, so if you are yet to finish the game or it's a 1997 original, please click off the video and save it for when you've finished either or. With that being said, let's mosey. Chapter 4 focuses on Avalanche and helps us develop an attachment to them. The chapter starts with a fun as fuck bite minigame that we play to get our cast topside. This is also where we meet new character Roche, a member of Soldier. His character is pretty interesting yet can be annoying, but he makes for a fun mini-boss during this minigame with an awesome cutscene where we finish him off. And also, when you play through the game, we hear a little thing about soldiers, which also, what we hear can link to Roche. It starts a fun little theory. Depending on how you perform during the minigame as well, you get a cutscene where Jessie either praises or insults Cloud, each being very in character for both and is actually great to see. We're going to explore a topside neighbourhood, and comparing this one to the slums is a jarring difference, as this looks more or less natural despite the huge ass pipes everywhere. This wasn't in the script, but I love this Easter egg with the cats on the wall. You know, the cats representing Biggs, Jessie and Wedge, and then the black cat that's in the garden representing Cloud being separated from the group. Or you could even see this as Cloud being separated from from Barrett, Tifa and Aerith, but it's more likely Wedge, Biggs and Jessie, as you know, there's a big cat and then there's you know, 2 more agile cats. It's a nice little Easter egg slash little hint. We unfortunately miss out on Jessie's mom's Midgar special as we rob her paralysed father of his Shinra ID card and proceed with our mission to get some blasting agent. It sounds really bad when you say it out loud, but the mission does make some sense, as he's, you know, technically crippled from Marco poisoning, which is what happened to Cloud at the end of Crisis Core. After a flashback to the Promise scene, we infiltrate some places as a distraction, essentially, and partake in some pretty fun battles until Roche shows up again and challenges to a duel mono-we-mono. This fight is honestly piss easy, but it is really fun and accompanied by a fantastic track. Once the fight is over, Roche does his psychotic laugh and drives off, sadly never to be seen again throughout the course of the game, but he's still hoping to part 2. As short-lived as he was, he made for some fun scenes and fights, so I'll give him a pass. After this we make our escape as another Avalanche sector takes care of Shinra for us, which also helps to develop Avalanche as well, as we didn't see any of this in the original game or hear of it from memory. We get a hilarious interaction between our crew.
Hit. Just swinged, I think. Oh, shot! Really? Let me see.
Are we seriously doing this here? That's... wow.
You guys are the worst!
Huh? Your ass is fine. Maybe singed, but the only casualty is your underwear. This is like a bruise or a mild burn at worst.
And Cloud actually cracks a smile here. One of the very few times he does, once again caused by Jessie, which is, you know, developing our feelings towards Jessie in this game. They take Jessie's escape route using parachutes, which once again makes for a hilarious scene and and it brings up some great character interactions and development as well.
Wait! Give me a minute!
No,
Why you have to be such a hard ass, bro?
I ain't your bro.
Upon returning home, Tifa pays us a visit and we see Cloud mention the Promise and actually being a good person for once. Avalanche does change Cloud at the early points of this game. But surprisingly, we wake up to see the slums overrun with whispers that everyone can see this time. And it makes for a pretty decent fight, I suppose, but the character interactions that come after are the true stars of the scenes. It's just an excuse, really, to make the game run longer, and I will admit that. But at the same time, it's fine, as it does make sense, because in the original game, Jessie can't go on the bombing run. And in this game, because she was going on the bombing run, the whispers made it so she was unable to by injuring her leg. So yeah, it does make sense. And once we're ready, Chapter 5 begins when and so we choose. Chapter 5 acts as our journey to the next Marco reactor, one that is admittedly pretty meh. The train stuff at the start is pretty cool, as we get to see, how we quote unquote fit in with the public. The alarm goes off as expected, and we jump from the train in order to not get caught. And that's where the rest of the chapter just turns into a little bit of a shitfest, because I think the train stuff at the start is what makes it noteworthy, as we get to see, obviously, you know, the NPCs now after the first Marco run, and obviously we get to see how our cast would, you know, just try to blend in with the crowd, and how Barrett has this witty hatred towards the Shinra employee, vice versa. It's good stuff when you're on the train, and I honestly wish you was on the train for a lot longer than you were. And like I said, the rest of the chapter is met as it is literally just running through long ass tunnels while doing some mediocre and repetitive fighting. There is nothing much interesting going on with the gameplay. We do learn about Stamp, however, and how his nose guides Avalanche, which is pretty smart. I really do like that. All this time, we do see how Heidegger is stalking us through the cameras, and that he's certainly planning something. This is the best part of the chapter, as the lore that this chapter brings is pretty interesting, because we never get to see any of this perspective anywhere else in the game, and I like how Shinra's got total control over everything, no matter what division they're from. Anyways, the chapter ends as we battle the Crab Warden, which is a pretty tough fight for the position that you'll be in, but it's also really, really, really fun. Like, this is a good ass fight, and I honestly do think it's one of the best in the game, because it requires you to think strategically about what you're going to do, and you have to make use of your entire arsenal, including materia and abilities at the time, to actually, you know, complete it without having as many troubles as you might have done with the Scorpion Sentinel at the start of the game. It's a great finishing fight, but the rest is boring in terms of its gameplay. The lore is pretty good, however. It's a good job the character interactions saved this chapter, because if there were no character interactions and all the characters were dull, this chapter would probably be the worst one in the game, and that is not an exaggeration. Chapter 6 sees us literally underneath the plate of Sector 5, and by that I mean literally underneath Sector 5's plate. And it's a whole new point of view we've never seen, and it's honestly pretty cool to see what the underside of the plate looks like, and, you know, how it would be maintained, etc. But the chapter is boring, just like the last one. This one for different reasons. So we run around these catwalks as we do a lot of puzzle solving to get around places and to shut off some lamps to proceed. The gameplay is honestly lame, but the lore behind it, like the last chapter, is cool, because it lets us theorise what the people of Sector 5 will be thinking about, you know, why the sun lamps are going out and what they're going to do now that the light source is fading, etc. You know, things like that. It's just the thought process that get put into your head about these chapters that really do make them good. And now, don't get me wrong, like, the problem solving isn't bad, it's just really boring, because there isn't much happening in the environment. And this is one of the biggest problems the game has, the level design. Now, while it does make the world feel very alive and lived in, and, you know, like, the level design in some places is downright awful, and this is one of them. Like, I don't have any real complaints about the level design in most chapters, you know, because it's what you'd expect, you know, simple pathways to certain locations, and then when you get to the location, there's a lot more to do. But in this chapter, the level is just a big ass maze with all these different things to do, and there's nothing happening. Like, you'll get to a big square area and you'll say to yourself, please don't be a fight, please don't be a fight, and there's a fight. Like, it's a shame. I really do think it's something that needed a little bit more time and attention in this game. But then, these environments also, like, if you do enough exploring, you will be rewarded. In this instance, you get rewarded with a Chocobo Moogle summon, which is a really cool summon, and it is powerful. And, you know, this is also something done to combat, like, the poor level layout. Like, almost every level and area feels the same. It's just run, look around a corner, find some treasure, continue on, you know, on the path straight ahead. And I don't mind it in most cases, because the environments are either fun, the character interactions, you know, take your mind off it, you know, whatever. It's, you know, things like that. It's just something I wish had a little bit more time and effort put into it. But at the same time, I don't mind the linearity, as it makes Midgard less of a maze, and it allows us to soak up the locations that we will visit. And it's a good thing, because we don't want to explore like 8 different sectors as well as the Shinra building, because we're going to forget most of it, and we don't want to do that. They want us to remember the characters, remember where we've been, and remember the lore. That's the whole point, and that's what they did really well. But sometimes, to get to that point where you're understanding the lore and enjoying it, you have to go through the gameplay, which can be pretty shit. And I mean, the locations, sometimes it can be really boring. And by that I mean really, really boring, which is a huge letdown. And this chapter is the prime example of it. And just like the last chapter, the character interactions and personalities, they are absolutely incredible in this chapter, which is again something that save it, like Barrett being afraid of heights.
Hey guys, you know, these fans are really loud and...
You chickening out?
Hell no! I'm just worried that your pony ass is gonna get blown off the side and shit.
Enough! We gotta keep moving!
Okay then. Follow me.
It's something that makes you, it makes you giggle. It's something that keeps you invested, without taking your eyes off the screen, hoping that the chapter's going to finish anytime soon. It's one of those things. Whatever, it's what saved this chapter and a handful of chapters is what I'm saying. And we finish off by encountering Biggs, and he tells us he's secured our entrance to the reactor. And that literally concludes the chapter. The chapter lasts about an hour to 45 minutes-ish, so roughly an hour, and it's just, I don't know, I don't like it. To give brief thoughts on each chapter discussed, Chapter 4 is easily the best of the three, as it's super fun, packed with lore and incredible character development. 9 out of 10. Chapter 5 is the longest feeling of them to me, as there's not a lot of interesting things happening here. The level design is long and boring, but at least the characters are good and there is some pretty decent lore. 6 out of 10. Chapter 6 has great lore involved, but some pretty boring gameplay and tedious problem solving. 6 out of 10. And there we have it, chapters 4, 5 and 6 of Final Fantasy VII Remake covered. They were a downgrade from the last 3 chapters that I discussed in the last video, but I do love chapter 4 a lot, as it is ultimately what makes chapter 12 as good as it is in the end. Thank you all for watching this episode of the Remake review. I hope to catch you in part 3 where I look at chapters 7, 8 and 9. Thank you all for watching, take care and have a good one.